If you are new here, welcome in. We are an IT leadership focused community. It's dedicated to IT leaders. It's built by IT leaders. It's a place for you to share content, for you to learn from peers, build community, things like that. And then we also host bi-monthly webinars to discuss various IT leadership topics. And then we actually bring leaders on that are within the space that can share their expertise. And we talk about a variety of different topics. We might be talking about people management, technology, scaling like we are today. And yeah, we just kind of talk about things that IT leaders struggle with. Today, like I said, we're going to be talking about scaling. So scaling your infrastructure, adding complexity, capacity, adding endpoints, more vendors, the risk that comes with that. There's a lot that comes with scaling up. So yeah, that's kind of what we're just going to talk about today. Tim, if you want to introduce yourself again to the community, share a fun fact this time. I don't know, something out of the blue.
Fun fact. I've never been asked to provide a fun fact before.
Right.
My name is Tim Lanning. I'm the Vice President of IT for SJRC Texas. We're a nonprofit in the San Antonio area doing child welfare, working with the state to try to actually completely eliminate ourselves as a company. That would be great if we didn't have to provide services. But, just working hand in hand with some pretty complex infrastructure and taking our company from 75 employees to now we are at 700 in my tenure here. Been here about 4 years. So familiar with scaling people-wise, and infrastructures had to go with it. Systems have had to implement. So as soon as I saw this topic come up, I said, hi, I have a PhD in scaling. That's not a real degree. Wish it was. I would qualify. But fun fact for me, I am writing actually several books at once. I've roped in myself into too many things. One of them is for a kind of a challenge thing, so I can't say too much about that. But enjoying writing. It's a nice little outlet for myself. So I'm not a published author yet, and I don't know that I ever will be. But we're writing for the fun of it. So that's my fun fact.
Awesome. Well, it is great to have you on again. I appreciate you taking out the time to talk about this topic, and I'm glad that you kind of volunteered for it, because I think that you do have that experience scaling at a really big capacity. So I first wanted to touch a little bit on what your experience was like when you had to scale. I know that you probably had to scale quickly and efficiently. How was that process, and how much preparing and planning did you get to do ahead of time, and how much of it was done kind of on the fly?
Well, it was interesting because I was hired about 2 weeks before we went from 75 to about 300 employees. We had kind of a two-stage, two-region contract, and I was in the, I watched Top Gun Maverick literally recently. So, being able to say, it goes down the pilot in the box, right? So I was in the box for, the second part of this transition, which was honestly a lot larger, but hired about 2 weeks before, which tells you a little bit about how the planning was going before I got here. So as far as that goes, I really had to roll with what was here. So there was a lot of, not really a ton of office space at that moment that needed to scale. It was really more just more like your endpoint side and systems. And our CTO at the time was kind of flailing, standing up some stuff, hadn't really engaged anybody that knew what they were doing, and was just kind of, I don't know what to say other than that. So as far as planning goes, no. That first time I didn't really, and then I'll contrast that with the second time. So it's really nice. I have two different, similar circumstances, but two different outcomes, in my opinion. Successfully done both times, but one was a lot more filled with heartache than the other. The second time, as soon as I knew that we were going live with this contract, I got kind of tipped off unofficially. So, sorry, I'll beg for forgiveness now. Ever since then, kicked off a whole bunch of plans, started having conversations with my team internally, really making sure that I understood end to end what was going to happen, what needed to happen, what needed to scale, because we're dealing with certain aspects of this on the financial side. And I have to make my justification for what has to scale to meet that demand. And it was a very natural process of, hey, what do you need to make this Bear County contract happen? And I was able to say very quickly, I need this, this, because I had been planning from the lessons I learned the first time. Investing in systems was the biggest thing that we really needed to do. We didn't do a good job of that the first time, and it ended up with about 180 phones that didn't really go according, like we were actively iterating on them as we were handing them to people, less than ideal. Laptops, we didn't have any sort of management on. We had to go back through and install an RMM for 180 people that were strewn about a 27 county radius around, central Texas. That's fun. Just certain decisions that were made in scaling that systems were not really prioritized that first time. So that's really my experience, is being able to see how poorly that went, and how when we needed to transition phone numbers from a government contract to us, how that was being done. That process was initiated 3 weeks before we went live with all this, before I had to have phones in hand. Everyone was, 5-alarm fire from moment one of my start. It was like I had my NEO, I did my new employee orientation, and then I was working immediately like 10-hour days. So didn't want to do that to my people this second go around. So anyway, just I had to look at that system scaling and see what went wrong, and really post-mortem that. And I'll talk about that a little bit, in a little bit. But what I would say, even if you're given a less than ideal hand, it's really important to just do what you can with the cards you're given, right? There's certain things you can't change about a process like this. Like if you're being asked to bring on a whole new office, and you found out because someone just mentioned it, and now you're like, wait a minute, this is an 8,500 square foot office. I'm not talking specifically about anything in my life, don't worry. And you find out that the cost estimate when they were, putting down a mortgage for how much IT was going to cost was $5,000 for a whole new 8,500 square foot office. You need to go have some uncomfortable conversations as quickly as possible with very important people. And I don't envy anybody that has to do that. So anyway, that was me filibustering that one answer. Sorry, but
no, that's okay.
There's a lot of lessons learned here.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest lessons that because you said there are two different takeaways
Sure.
that you have from this. So what are the biggest lessons that you did learn, and what did you do differently that made it run a little bit better?
Have conversations with people, number one, because that was the main thing that went wrong. Like the one main thread through all of this was that I won't say anything too terribly negative about my predecessor, as kind of like the head honcho in IT, but we just kind of hunkered down and we just let this process happen. And the state wasn't sitting there being like, hey, you need to make sure you have this.
Mm-hmm.
They were expecting us to do our job. And I'm, baby IT manager, 2 seconds out of new employee orientation. I don't even know what a DFPS is. I started playing the acronym game real quick. I had a literal cheat sheet. I can't find it anymore, but I was writing down what in the world things were. So I couldn't necessarily sit there in my role and ask those uncomfortable questions. And so, and when I say uncomfortable questions, I mean, hey, what is, you're asking dumb questions, kind of. What is the plan with these 300 cell phones? Are they eligible for an upgrade with the carrier over here so that we can have a device, or do we have to pay for a device? Like, you're just asking very simple questions.
Mhm.
And you're asking that of vendors, you're asking that of your internal folks. So I went to my boss, the CFO, the second time around. I said, here's what I understand the process is, and was able to say, here's how much this will cost, this will cost, this will cost, because I've already anticipated all this for you. You're welcome. The first go around, it was a lot of my predecessor going and asking for forgiveness for $500,000 that he was going to have to spend. And let's just say that didn't contribute to a healthy working relationship with the CFO. She doesn't like CFOs don't like being handed $500,000 bills without anticipating it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
communication is the big one. And the other thing I learned was to just analyze, to take a step back, look at what you think. What is your gut telling you is necessary in this situation? Do you need, okay, we're bringing on a bunch of cell phones. We're probably going to need some mobile device management unless we want to do this wrong. You certainly can run without an MDM, but we were bringing on 180 of these things. And the second time we were bringing on 350. You need a system in place to manage all that. And then you need to configure that system. That means you need to do a lot of research, and you need to figure out what system's going to work, what pricing is going to work. You have to go have a frank conversation with your CFO. If it's not your budget cycle, you got to say, hey, you're making me do this. Remember, I'm not asking to scale here. I'm not asking to bring that site online. But it needs internet. It needs a switch. It needs access points. It needs all these things. You're forcing this constraint upon me. I'm doing the best I can. And also, you gave me like a month to do this because we move in a month. That's not how that works, number one. Number two, I'll do what I can. So I'm going to go engage my vendors, and I'm going to get you the best pricing I can with expedited shipping. You're going to have to understand that cost more. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there's some very uncomfortable conversations, but do you notice the thread here? You're acknowledging the constraints, you're working within them, and you're providing a solution. Nowhere in this is the bit where Tim hunkers down in the corner and just starts weeping. That happens off cam. That's not, you don't let the CFO see that. They smell weakness. So
you
I guess
guys do that off business hours. You can't be.
Yeah, that's that. You don't get paid to cry. I need that on a thing like right here. Those are the things that I really would take away from this as like practical things is you can't help the constraints that you're given in any sort of scaling situation. Maybe you've been included from the very beginning. Hey, we're thinking about bringing this office online and we're thinking about doing it next year. Amazing. Can I come work for you? Because I get a lot of, really bad hands and I don't complain about them. Okay. That's my job. And that's my point. My job is to deal with the hand that I'm given and make an incredible solution happen where everyone says, wow, IT had it all together. They don't need to know the truth, but that's your job. Welcome to IT leadership. You can go back to being an individual contributor anytime you want, if you really want to. But if you want to take that step into leadership, this is the type of stuff that you don't know that you're getting into. So, I'm prepared for it. So
yeah, absolutely. What do you do to try to be in those conversations as early as possible? Because I know we talk a lot about relationship building with other members of the organization. Is there something that you do in particular to make sure that people know that IT needs to be included as early on in the process as possible so that you can avoid some of those last minute additions?
There's a two-sided coin here that I'm going to describe. And it's really up to you as the individual leader here to decide how much of which you're going to apply. Think about it. Okay, let's jettison the coin analogy and let's go, brake and gas. You got to honestly, that's even a better metaphor because the gas part is putting your nose in every single conversation and saying, and just asking point blank, is there anything I need to know to do my job? Because if you don't tell me about something like this, I'm not going to know. It's going to look bad on both of us. We kind of don't want that. And also, if you tell me when you think that there's a thing, I can have a quote for you ready. You can be prepared with a better cost estimate. So literally everybody's happy. Make friends with your facilities people, your maintenance folks. They're your best buds because they know what's coming down the pipeline probably before anybody else. because they're the ones out there doing all the site surveys and everything. I'm talking about like bringing sites online. That's kind of my pain point right now. But that goes for anything. You know, if you have like an infrastructure team and you're the, you know, the help desk support leader, make friends with your infrastructure people. Also, they're in IT. They probably should be your best friends, right? If there's like this, you maybe have a different problem. That's a different webinar altogether. But you know, one team. I won't quote High School Musical at you, but that's the gas part. Stick your nose where you may think it doesn't belong. I'm not saying do that unethically. I'm saying go ask questions. And if people get sick of you, they're going to get sick of you because you're over communicating. You are saying, I need to know things. You don't have to tell me everything. I don't need to know everything that's handled in executive session of our board meetings. I don't. I just need to know, I need you to think what's impacting me. That's what you need. And that's what I've had to kind of train my boss on is what does Tim need to know? Because my boss is the CFO. She's thinking cha-ching brain. And I don't mind that at all. That's her job. But if you're not going to put me directly in the room so I can hear that and take my takeaways, I need you to prepare me. I need you to tell me these things. And I will say on that front, as far as the gas goes, a lot better on that front. I've really been hammering this. Some of the resources in the lab have been incredible for helping this specific point. But we're gonna shift from the gas to the brake here. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to just sit back and watch a situation unfold. If you had known something 6 months ago, and that would have been smoother, but if the gas ain't working, you need to maybe consider pressing the brake, because if they're not going to involve you and they're going to say that IT is going to cost $5,000 and you know that, but they're not coming to you and saying, hey, Tim, how much is this going to cost? Can you quote this out for me? If they're not doing that, guess who gets to sock them with a $15,000, $20,000 infrastructure bill that doesn't really jive with the $5,000 that they quoted? And you know whose problem that isn't? You didn't tell me. What do you want me to do? It's the same thing. Like we had switches that we could have gotten for like $5,000, but the whole thing cost $9,000 because we were doing it with a month. Like you didn't include me when you knew this office space was coming online. That's not my problem. I'm still going to give you a solution, but I'm just going to acknowledge that next time you really need to tell me. You really need to have it in your head. You're paying an opportunity cost because you did not include me when you had the chance. Take the lesson. It will literally save the company money. And that's my interest. I'm not going to sit here and be punitive. I want to save the company money. I want to do the best I can with the resources I'm given. If you're not giving me the ability to do that, I can only do what I can. So gas and brake a little bit. Understand that it's okay. Don't be like, well, the company's going to fold if I don't make this decision, but I'm going to stick it to them. Okay. Ethical. Yeah, you could drive like an absolute moron on the road using the gas and the brake, or you could be a defensive driver. I guess to torture this analogy, be a defensive driver. That's all.
Oh, I like it. I mean, the gas and the brake, that's, you know when you should put on the gas and you know when you should put on the brake, and you have to kind of do the same exact thing when you're...
Don't get me started on the clutch.
Yeah. So past the interacting with higher ups or interacting with those, how, from a people standpoint, does scaling infrastructure impact the way that you hire? Did you have to hire people that specifically could manage certain things that you were putting into place, or kind of what did that process look like?
I'm going to caveat everything I'm about to say with the fact that it really does matter what your facts on the ground are. So I'm a nonprofit. I automatically have a certain set of constraints upon me that most businesses don't. I don't have like profit, what's a 401k type things, right? So those constraints are interesting. But, and also a massive constraint, it's not even really a constraint. It's kind of the opposite, but it's a weird little quirk about where I work. The CFO, thank goodness, because that allows me to exist, She wants direct control over IT. She has zero interest in outsourcing anything. Okay, that changes how I think because I'm used to outsourcing things. I've had great relationships with MSPs and contractors and all the things. I'm in IT. I'm aware. Here, though, I'm automatically like, I don't get to use all those cool tools. I'm sorry. You can keep hitting me up on LinkedIn. It's going to be the same thing. Sorry. It's not my call, but that does change how I hire, to answer the question, because where I would flex to, oh, I need a bunch of talent here for, a really short period of time to help handle this transition for 400 people. I instead have to automatically think about, well, what is my support queue going to look like post transition when we're at 700 people? How many technicians can I justify there? Because those technicians are going to be hired ahead before we bring on those 400 people, and they're going to be the ones doing the majority of the work. Do you see how that changes my mindset there? And so that's why I'm saying it's all dependent on the facts on the ground. If you have exactly one FTE and that's you in your budget, sorry, I guess when it comes to scaling, it's kind of on you. If your company won't give that to you, is despite you asking nicely or not nicely, or gas and brake appropriately, they're still not giving you what you really need. You got to deal with the fact on the ground, or, at that point, probably find another job. But you do you. I won't tell you what to do. This is not career advice. That's a different webinar. Just it does change how you hire, and here's how. Because you want to, at least in my experience, you simultaneously want to hire for the task. I wanted to hire people that were really good at configuring desktops and phones. And yet, the smart thing to do, I think, was to look beyond that and hire people that had kind of varied interests beyond that. They're all in agreement that the work needs to happen. And honestly, that changed how I was interviewing. Hey, we're bringing 400 people on board. Buckle up. If you want this role, buckle up. It's going to be a lot of, hey, we're in office for like 3 months, building laptops, building phones, doing all the things. But then after that, it's a completely different thing. And I got 5 incredible people on my help desk team. I love them to death. It's the most millennial group chats ever, and I don't understand about half of it. But I love them. Millennial is probably the wrong word. I understand millennials. It's more like Gen Z. It's a lot of like, what's a jonkler? I don't know. But one of the guys, I don't even know. Don't look at that. That's okay. It's the Joker, but bass boosted and cursed. I don't even know what those mean. That's the explanation that's been given to me, right? Anyway, I don't know. It does change, because then I had to look beyond it, is my point. Is I had to see, okay, yes, you're all in agreement that this work needs to happen right now, but then when we're done scaling, what are we going to do? What are your interests? One of them wants to be a DevSecOps engineer. The other wants to be a cloud engineer. Great. I can work with that. So a little bit of both.
So is there a lot of like training paths and like things that they have to keep those, like learn those skills and keep up with that education to kind of help with that scaling, but also help with their own career growth?
We take it as, while you're here, we don't anticipate you being a lifer here. If you want to be, fine. But I acknowledge I'm a nonprofit, and you could be making about $30,000 more literally anywhere else, but yet you love the environment that we're fostering here. But that's not sustainable long term. We understand. Like that's not how that works. So to answer that, we're really, while you're here, we're going to foster and steward your skills. We're going to do what we can so that when you do leave, if and when you do leave, you can say, I really enjoyed those people. They really invested in me. And also, hey, that little box on the ATS that you check, like, can we contact this supervisor? We want that to be yes, because you're leaving to go, make $1 bajillion. Also, can you come hire us? Like that type of thing. But yes, it's taking the certification matrix that you, Brittany, that you worked on. I actually showed that to them. I blew it up on the big screen, and they were like, I want to do that and 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 that. And then I had to come in and be the bad guy and be like, okay, yes, but understand that I can't pay for any of it. But
Yeah.
what can we do? Where do you want to go? Can we expose you to some projects to give you real world experience in it that you can claim on your resume or that you can spec up for a role in the future? I've been scaling people this entire time. I've created certain roles for certain people, not just to fit them in, but because we had a genuine need and that person was willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's big. That's and here's kind of the underlying to get it back to scaling, right? Like if you have an opportunity to scale as an organization, I'm talking strictly about organizational growth, which is a unique thing and it doesn't happen very often. It probably won't happen again at this company. But when you have those opportunities, right size it. Don't sell yourself short. You're going to run into the buzzsaw of the finance person who's going to take that back. They're going to say, do you really need that? So you shoot high. We've had an entire discussion, I think it was last year, about budgeting, and you shoot high, but you keep sacred the things that you absolutely need. So anyway, same thing with people, right? So yes, invest in your people. It's going to pay off, I promise. And that also means that if I have a Linux server that needs to be built, I have a person that's really into Linux that was able to really come alongside one of my other guys and really help out there. You're fostering this environment of collaboration. No matter the job role, people are able to input in the things that they can, right? There's things that are sacred to me. So, and scaling just budgetary wise, like again, get in the room as quickly as you can, because if not, you're late to this party. Budgeting is huge. If you can align it with a budget cycle, which most competent organizations will do, sometimes they drop the contract on you in the middle of the budget year and you're just like, well, guess I'll die. So it's a whole thing. But if you can get in the budget cycle and really just think about what the end result is, think past the pain for a minute. What do you need to succeed over here? Do you need a tech at that office that's 100 miles away? Yes, you do. In the long term, it will be cheaper. So
yeah. Moving past the people part of it, and moving on to the technical side, what is an architectural decision or a decision that you made with your technology that you had to undo, whether that is something that you chose to do or something that you inherited? Was there anything that you had to undo in order to, either redo it or choose a different path or things like that?
I'll pick on Intune here, Microsoft Intune, which I think is the name of it still. I just work here. When we onboarded the first time, it's two separate contracts, right? So when we onboarded the first time, we were just baby fledgling Intune. We didn't know what a management policy was, nothing like that. We basically just, our computers specifically were in Intune. And we set up a policy, right, based on kind of what the big state entity was doing, which they are thousands of employees, different set of restraints. And so honestly, the policy wasn't right sized because nobody knew what they were doing and I didn't have the keys to the kingdom. And also I don't know what I'm doing. So, no, I'm kidding. I do now. That's what happens when you have to do exactly what I'm describing. You get really familiar with that system. So we misconfigured that system, A. And B, we didn't know that we could use autopilot, which is a feature in kind of hand in hand with Intune, Entra ID, Microsoft. When you buy a laptop, we had made some key fumbles in buying these particular laptops to where we couldn't use this, turns out, this feature, but we didn't even know it existed. So the second time around, here's what I'm saying. So we were able to use autopilot in Microsoft Intune to completely configure these laptops. All the technician had to do was set up like 12 of them on these massive tables that we bought for the purpose, with power strips that we bought for the purpose, right? So there was a little bit of forethought there too. Like I'm going to need tables and power strips and all, even stuff like that. That's involved in scaling, those little micro decisions. you got to budget for, because that's got to come from somewhere. Anyway, they just set them all up one day, let it run. We had 12 of the 400 laptops done that day, and then that starts scaling a little bit. That kind of snowballed into, oh, I can do 15 if I do this. And we made it a competition too, by the way. That's the big thing, is a big dreary task like that, start gamifying it. Anyway, completely sidetracked. What we had to undo was a lot of the policies that we had set up the first time. That meant that those laptops that had been brought on board with the previous policy then suddenly had to resync, and a lot of them kind of broke because it was so misconfigured the first time. It was like wing and a prayer, duct tape, MacGyver stuff. I won't claim responsibility for that one. That one wasn't actually me. But we had to undo it. We had to redo it. And basically, a lot of them actually ended up having to wipe and reload. We had to schedule time with our new techs to reload this stuff for people that had been here for 2 years already. Just, man, yeah. Look at every aspect of a system before you implement it as much as you can, right? Don't buy into the marketing hype. Dig it deeper. Ask dumb questions even there. If you're bringing a system on board, ask uncomfortable questions, right? Like I love the sales engineers in my life. I love, all of that, but I might be their worst enemy because I'm asking dumb questions. Why? So that I can understand my pitfalls. So I would say the other thing that we did is we were a hybrid Azure Active Directory environment at the time of bringing all these on board, which was a massive pain because we were going from everybody's kind of on site at this one location where we have our domain controller, yippee skippy. And then we're bringing 180 people on board who are completely remote. They will never touch this campus where our domain controller is. How are we going to handle password resets? Oh, wait, nobody thought of that. Again, kind of part and parcel. We just basically had to completely wash the configuration of those laptops and start fresh with them. We budgeted for replacing them entirely. We went with a hardware lifecycle kind of out of band replacement there just to make it easier because we had to. The reload plan didn't even work that I was talking about earlier. So anyway, there's a lot involved there, and there's a lot of personal trauma in my life. I'm kidding. But please, just when you're messing with systems like that, with management systems, with your MDM on your phones, tread very lightly, tread very carefully, make informed decisions. Ask people around you, ask communities. Don't be afraid to be that guy on the subreddit. Even if you get flamed for it by the Redditors that are like, oh, this is in our sticky post on the wiki. Like, okay, great. Now I know the sticky post on the wiki. I don't know, like, didn't show up in Google, my bad. Go ask Spiceworks. They won't flame you as hard. But, that's just ask questions. Even if you think they're dumb and stupid and you should know better. It's better to be dumb and stupid and know better and be right the first time.
No, absolutely. You talk about Spiceworks. I used to work there for a long time, and I definitely ask dumb questions sometimes. I am not an IT professional, and I do not claim to be one. And the only way that I am able to learn new things is just by asking a bunch of questions. And it doesn't matter if they're dumb. It doesn't matter if I mess up. It doesn't matter if anybody gives me any crap about it. Now I know more. And I think that's like a very, very important part of being in IT is no one knows everything. And most people are just happy to help.
Yep.
Personally, I love being able to be right about something and be knowledgeable about something and be able to tell something to someone because I know it. Like that feels good to me that I would be able to provide that. So,
right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You mentioned looking at vendors and scaling with them. How do you choose vendors when you're scaling? And obviously budget plays a part in it, but how much do you consolidate? How much do you diversify vendors? Because all of that also affects risk and things like that. So how did you ultimately decide on vendors as you were looking through that process?
Shameless plug for Ninja One.
Yeah.
You knew that was
I
coming.
promise it was not a leading question, I swear.
You knew it was coming, but look, what really helps is that my CFO was on board with the discussion for Ninja One before we did it. Right? She was on one of the first calls, and she was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" Oh, and so anytime I've come to her and said, "Hey, Ninja One does this now. Here's how this would help," she's like, "Well, if it's Ninja, go ahead." Right? So I have there's that too. That's a little lever that you can use. So regardless of vendor, right? If they're a good vendor, Ninja One, right? You kind of have easier pathways there because people can see what's working and what isn't. I am going to say though, sometimes there are things that one vendor just doesn't do well. I'm not really talking about Ninja One here because everything we use them for is fantastic, right? And I'll say that we're using them primarily for the RMM. We're using them for ticketing, and they are perfect for our ticketing needs. Those are really the big things right now. Just to the point, I have some constraints as far as diversification, right? We made the call to go to Intune, but if you look at pound for pound, MDM in Ninja versus Intune, I would very much prefer to be over here in Ninja land. Just the lift isn't quite where, to be able to make that switch. I'm very interested in consolidation if I can help it. If they're a good company, if their price is right, which as a nonprofit, I love being able to say that magic word and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we love you guys," right? So there's that too. Consider the constraints. But, sometimes there's just things that you have to do one way or the other. Like sometimes there is a SaaS backup solution that you're like, "Oh, cool, it's Datto." And then a month after you sign the 3-year contract, they're like, "Hey, we're owned by Kaseya now." And you're like, "Great, cool." I hate myself. And that's around the same time that Ninja was like, "Hey, we do SaaS backup." I'm like, contract. Anyway, I'm saying anecdotally that good vendors when you see them. Vendors that are doing good work, that are providing a good product. And part of that is being honest with yourself and with the vendor. Because a vendor that's good is going to be looking for your feedback and actually implementing it. And that's one thing I can say about Ninja. This did not just become the Ninja One hype session, but I mean it, right? This is genuine. They're rocking and rolling with feedback that I've put in, here and there, and seeing it implemented is amazing. That's just a sign of a good vendor, right? And in your environment, IT leader X, right? There's that vendor that you're really rocking with. We rock with Dell. We love Dell. They ship us, stuff that's like, "Hey, can you try this out?" Type thing, because I've had those conversations. And yeah, it's really nice to have a 4K webcam, to trial and, be able to this. I'm the test monkey for that. But here's my point. Consolidating versus diversification. There's not really a wrong answer here. I think your priority does not have to be what does vendor X think about your input of consolidation versus diversification. I think what matters way more is your stack, your environment. That is the most important thing. What is going to be the best fit for the price, for the environment, for all these things, for your user lift? Because I'm sure there's an incredible ticket system out there that would be 100% what SJRC Texas needs. But does Tim have the expertise, the time, the patience to configure that system to be exactly what I need it to be? No. I'll take the 99.9% of Ninja One ticketing because the 0.1% doesn't matter to me right now. And it's already on the roadmap anyway. So there's that. So what matters way more, what is going to work for your environment with the constraints that you have? I think the through line of all of this is be very honest with yourself, no matter the stage of scaling, no matter where you're at, what your specific scaling issue is. Be very honest. Even if that leads to some uncomfortable questions, some uncomfortable answers, no matter who, your vendor, your internal, your executive team. If you're that person that's going in and you're saying, "Hey, we have this problem," yeah, they're going to look at you and be like, "No, you're just worrying about nothing." But then when you're right and you're standing on the trash heap of the, scaling thing that didn't go well, and you're like, "Had you just listened to me, this would have gone so much better." You're going to get a little bit of begrudging respect from the, survivors of the radioactive apocalypse to follow. But, maybe you can start a religion. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was a Children of Adam joke, by the way. I don't know for the Fallout fans.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There are dozens of us.
um, so we talk about consolidating, diversifying, things like that. How, when you scale, do you assess risk and security? How does that also change when you scale and add devices and things like that? And you have potentially less visibility over things. I mean, ideally you wouldn't. Ideally they're all in Ninja and everything's great and everything's perfect, but you add more people, they're suddenly using devices probably that they shouldn't be using. And how do you kind of impact that risk and security?
Don't be afraid to implement policies that make people grumble. If and only if it's the right thing to do. Take the reputation hit if there is one. Because HIPAA compliance, if that matters to you, and honestly, I have this kind of controversial belief that every business should probably act like they're HIPAA compliant, even if they're not, even if they don't have to be. It's best practice, right? Same with like NIST compliance. Like you don't, like look at the FedRAMP guidelines. Are you having to deal with that? No, but look at the pillars that are there and see why those are a thing and adapt that to yourself. You're just going to help yourself. These frameworks, people are, full-time architects to work within this framework for a reason. So number one, I mean, if you look at like what HIPAA entails and what those are the requirements that are put on your AI products that you're putting in, or, let's go a little bit off the hot button issue that's going to derail Tim for the next 30 minutes. Let's, look at, okay, this system to do amazing email security is reading every bit of our mail. What agreements do we have in place with that vendor? What are the terms of service? And yes, that means you do have to read the terms of service sometimes, or have ChatGPT. Don't have ChatGPT do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just you need to understand the stakes. And that's on you as the leader, is looking at, hey, to make sure that our emails are secure, right? They're saying that they're going to sign a business associate agreement with us. Awesome. What happens if something happens? What do we do? You have to be thinking of that, because the vendor is holding themselves to, hey, we want to sell a HIPAA compliant product, so we're going to be compliant to HIPAA. But have they really thought through what's going to happen if they actually suffer a breach of some kind? Maybe. You know how you would know real quick is if you ask them. And if they don't have a good answer, Kaseya, then move on. Like that. So just honestly, the best way to mitigate risk is to understand your base level constraints and go like 1 or 2 or 3 levels higher and operate under that standard, even if you don't have to. Depends on your personal, like, what you can do. Because if for you to be FedRAMP compliant without needing to be FedRAMP compliant is like going to kill you, don't do it. Don't. But if you can, if you have compliance people that can maybe flex those muscles a little more, go ahead. Why not? Like, I'm not even saying like go through a FedRAMP checklist, but look at what something like that, something like, SOX compliance means for your, not SOC 2, SOX compliance means for your organization, and act accordingly. I guess that's all I'm saying, is the best way to mitigate risk is to think about everything. And the best way to think about everything is to have a framework. And there are a lot of them. So pick one.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Having some sort of guiding voice and constraints and things like that. That's really helpful. All right. Those are kind of all the questions I had. We kind of touched on a lot of the stuff that I wanted to ask. So I guess we'll just take this last few minutes. Do you have any other tips, maybe things I didn't cover, that like advice that you would give to anybody that is also experiencing the same thing?
Let's not spend 20 minutes doing this, but I'll spend about 5 minutes doing this. I want to kind of take you through what if I could go back and do that first transition over again. Okay, let's look at this, because I'm coming in from scratch. I know nothing about this company. I know zero. Let's say that I give myself a benefit and I have 6 months to prepare before we go live. That was not my scenario. Sorry, that I got to deal with that fire. It was a lot of moving laptops up and down an elevator. Don't recommend. It's just what it was. Step one, when you're on board, you have a lot more leeway to ask those dumb and stupid questions. Looks real weird if you're 4 years down the line being like, so what is our policy on, like, the implicit thing is that you should really know better. So you have a lot of room to ask dumb and stupid. Take advantage of it. Hey, how do we do this here? Hey, do you know how we do this? What are our policies? Did you know, by the way, this is a sidebar, it took me a year to figure out where our policies were, which is a problem, obviously, because we didn't know where the policies were. And IT was something that had been generated, let's see, I was on board in 26 years before and hadn't been touched. They still had PDA mentioned in it. So, yeah, that's fun. So what would have helped in that instance is to immediately step back and say, I'm auditing this. What is this? What is my environment? I did not do that. That's thing number one. There are, I know Clark has a good resource in the lab that was kind of actually like, he really jazzed up something that my director had done when he started. So he learned the lesson and he did it. When my director started, he immediately audited everything and had a better understanding of our infrastructure so that we could answer those scaling things. Because if the answer is, I don't know, to, well, how many switches do we have? Why are you even here? So, Clark took a lot of it and asked a lot of questions in there. So that's a good resource. I'm not, I definitely would advocate that, but whatever's going to work for you. So audit everything is what I would do immediately. And then I would be able to say, I see this, and this. So while we're scaling, well, if we have some excess funds, it'd be great. It's like a stretch goal in a Kickstarter. Yes, I do really want the card sleeves. Thank you very much. But also, can I get a switch with that? Can I get a couple access points? Because I really think it's going to help with the additional bandwidth of all these people. Do you see the levers I'm pulling already? 5 seconds after I start here, I understand my environment that I'm dropped into. And then I understand the scaling thing. So I'm asking a ton of dumb questions. Hey, looks like this 8B thing is happening. What's that? And then somebody will definitely take, the reins from there and gladly show you, I'm sure. But just live in the realm of understanding that, look, I'm new here. I got to ask some questions so I feel comfortable. If you don't do that, you make your life harder for yourself. So if I could go back and do it again, that is simply what I would say. Make a ton of relationships, put in the work. Hey, I'm your director of IT. I'm your IT manager, whatever your role is. Hi, I'm here. Here's my motive. I'm here to help you. I understand we have this, and this that seems to affect your department. Is there anything you have in mind for how I can help with that? Or what are your constraints? And then maybe I have a couple solutions for you that we can implement, right? And you just, number one, you're building that goodwill. Number two, you're automatically understanding how much work you're going to have. You're going to understand the projects that are coming down the pipeline. Hey, when do you think is a good timeline to implement this fleet management system that we need? Oh, yeah. While we're thinking about it, that would be good to have in a year's time. Okay. Another domino has just been added to the stack. So I'm saying a lot to say, don't be afraid to live in the land of dumb and stupid for a hot minute. It will help. I guess that's my parting advice.
Well, that's perfect. It is very, very good advice, I think, for everything.
Just in general.
Just ask a lot of dumb questions, and eventually you won't feel so dumb.
And then there's smart, dumb questions.
Yes, that is true. I don't know if I've ever asked any of those, but
Me neither. I'm not sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to discuss this. I really appreciate you spending your time here and talking about your experience scaling. We'll be back next week since we had to move this 1 week later. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about the cost of survival mode. So, you're constantly being put in situations where you're pulled in a bunch of different directions, and a lot of the bigger strategic tasks kind of go by the wayside, and you're left kind of always in survival mode. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and have some folks on to discuss that topic. So thank y'all for joining.
Yeah. Bye,
Really
everybody.
appreciate it. And yeah, take care.